Hey, I love therapy, and in fact, I've been going to therapy since I was around 6 years old. Though I talk about therapy a lot and may interview some therapists on the show on occasion, nothing that is said in this podcast should be considered a replacement for therapy. If you are struggling, I urge you to please seek guidance from a therapist because you are absolutely worth it. Hello, everyone. You're listening to Wine, Dine, and 69, a podcast about dating, relationships, sex, and self-love. I'm your host, Rachel Dalton. That intro went a lot better than I thought that it would, because I'm a little rusty. I'm going to try to keep this relatively brief. We'll see how well I do with that. Hey, hello. How is everybody? How you doing? The world hasn't collapsed yet, shockingly. So I wanted to talk a little bit before we get into the meat of today's episode. I wanted to talk a little bit about what's going on with the podcast and, by extension, what that means is what's going on with me because, it's just me doing the podcast. I haven't posted regularly I realized it's been about like a year. It's been like 12, 14 months. Which is interesting because that's exactly around the time that my life just kind of started getting a little bit hectic. I posted that episode about codices and about me really realizing about how I needed to take care of my trauma because it was taking over my life. And so I really dedicated myself to that. So there's a lot of internal work happening, a lot of looking at my values, a lot of figuring out what I want out of my life and how to get that. My priorities have switched a lot, and the way that I just kind of view the world has changed. There's been a bunch of internal change, obviously, but then there's been a bunch of external stuff too. So in addition to these big internal changes, we've had a bunch of family health things. In May, so about a year ago now, they found tumors in my mother's brain. My mother, I'll post her episode, the episode we did together in the episode notes of this show, so you can go back and take a listen to that. I love my parents so much. I'm obsessed with my parents. That's like another thing that I've really realized since the last year. I'm just like, I just want to hang out with my parents all the time. And I have been. We found out that my mom had these two tumors in her brain, and that she was going to need to do radiation. I had my own little health scare very briefly when I thought I found a lump in my breast. I'm clear. Everything's good. My dad ended up having a health issue happen in August, September. And there were a lot of questions there. He is also okay, but big thing is just facing your parents getting older. Like, that's really been the thing for me this year has been, I said to my dad, I was like, why didn't you warn me that it was going to be so hard? Anyway, and then my mom ended up having brain surgery in December. So between my very minor stuff and my parents' big stuff, it just existing with my family has taken so much of my energy, and I myself am giving myself a lot of energy. And so that is between working out the trauma stuff and all of these family dynamic things happening, life has just been a lot. And so I'm not surprised that, the Coda season episode was kind of the end of me posting on a regular basis. I was on a bi-weekly schedule for years. So what does all this mean? Okay. What all of this means is I'm running around a lot. Big focus for me has been home. I pick a word every year, and my word for 2025 is home. I've been spending a lot of time in Michigan. about a week every month for the past few months. I've tried to spend in Michigan. My partner and I just moved into a house in Philly. And tomorrow I leave for Europe to spend 2 months in my partner's home country. So I have like 3 homes now, and I'm spending a lot of time in them. But it's also been focused on home in terms of my body and how I treat my body. Facing the fact that in addition to watching my parents get older, I am also getting older. It's home in terms of values and what lights me up. Theater has come back into my life in a really major way, and it has been and always will be, one of my top priorities. And I just kind of sat with it for a while. I've had these podcast things up, and I just was like, you know what? I need to see how I feel about this. So I sat for months, always being like, oh, I need to release an episode. I need to release an episode. And that's the thing, is like, I knew as soon as I gave myself the freedom to not stick to a schedule that like it could very possibly go to shit. And that is kind of what happened. But I think that's kind of what needed to happen. Just kind of where I'm at in life is we're going with the flow. We're doing the best we can with what we have. And life is kind of a shit show. So what does this mean? Is kind of what I was getting to. What this means is that I'm going to be taking a pause. All of these changes that have been happening externally, all of these changes that have been happening internally, I'm just a different person than I was when I started this podcast. I've grown up quite a bit. I think that in many ways, it was one of the Call Her Daddy hosts recently posted something talking about like, yeah, I talked about sex a lot because like that's what I was taught men wanted to hear, or like I wanted to be cutting edge, like all of these different, I can't quote exactly what she said, but it was along the lines of a lot of what she was doing felt really performative. And I think that my podcast might have started out that way. Maybe not. I don't know. I think maybe it was just a different part of me, a different version of me. But I was just a totally different person at the start of this podcast. And so I've just decided that I need to take a step back. It's not necessarily goodbye forever. I just have, my energy is so limited these days. And I am being pulled in so many different directions internally and externally. Right now, like family, like myself and my family are my priority. The family that I come from and the family that I'm creating with my partner. That's just number one for me, is taking care of myself and taking care of my family. Which is funny because I feel like for so much of my life I was so focused on romantic relationships, and I don't know, my boyfriend, like, he's my partner, he's like, yeah, he's my romantic relationship, but more than anything else, he's like my life partner. That sounds really hokey, but like, you get what I'm saying. It's so much more than romance. It's kinship. It's, the word soulmate is overused, of course, but it's being comfortable. It's peace, and peace has been a top priority too. And as much as I love the podcasting, it requires a lot. I mean, again, it's just me over here. So what we're going to do here, I'm leaving for Europe tomorrow. I have 5 more episodes after this one. This one is one of 6 that I'm going to be posting between now and August 14th. August 14th, 2020 is the day that the first episode of this podcast aired. And so I thought it would be fitting to air the last one for now on that same date 5 years later in 2025. So it's going to be a mix of interviews that I've done with people I don't know that I wanted to interview for their expertise or their story. Or it is going to be me sitting down with a friend and just having a conversation over a few cocktails, kind of like what you saw in the episode that I recorded with Sam. So, yeah, I have 6 episodes this being one of them that I'm going to be airing between now and August. And we'll see what happens after that. I'm not closing the door on anything. I'm flexible. I know for me right now, there's only so much time. And the time that I have, I am spending a lot of it trying to be as present with. I don't need more projects, I guess is what I'm saying. Additionally, like, I write about mental health all day, every day now. Which, I mean, I can always talk about mental health, don't get me wrong, but I feel like I'm giving in the mental health sphere in a different capacity now than I was, when I was posting this podcast regularly. So yeah, it's not necessarily goodbye forever. I could come back with a different iteration of the podcast. I could come back with the same. I could come back with a co-host for all I know. Like, I don't know. But that's part of the fun of the journey. Another thing I've learned in the past, 14 months is just really how terrible and awful and wonderful and beautiful life can be. And how that messiness, that mishmash is just kind of the whole point of it. Just so many memories of me being in the trenches, being at home, taking care of my family and trying to support my mom as she was recovering from this surgery, which was and still is really, really hard. And just the moments of laughter or absurdity that come up in that. I don't know. I have a new appreciation for how finite everything truly is, how temporary it all is. And I want to live my life fully and breathe and sing and walk in the woods and dance. And I don't know. I am changing. I have changed. And the priorities have shifted, and we'll see how they continue to shift. It's exciting, actually. So that's what you can expect. But let's move right on along. Today, I am going to be having a conversation with Stephany Ann. She is a survivor and also a lawyer dealing with narcissistic abuse and domestic violence. So speaks for itself, but I will say content warning here that we are going to get in some kind of dicey, difficult topics that could be sensitive for some listeners. So if that's not for you, or if today is just not a day that you feel like doing that, that's totally fine. Come back later or just catch us in the next one. So, all right. I think that's it. That was the big important update. 1,000 little updates into the big update. But yeah, it is what it is. Okay. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for listening to me go on and on, telling my life story, having you stand witness to, whoever it is on the other end of these headphones, right? Whether it's thousands and thousands and millions of people, it's definitely not. Or whether it's just two people, thank you for listening to this episode and to all of the other ones. It means so much to me that you stand witness to the stories and the expertise of not only the guests, but my life story as it has kind of unfolded over the past 5 years. It means a lot. So thank you for that. Okay, and without any further ado, we're going to cut to a quick commercial break. And then you will hear a conversation between me and Stephany Ann. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Let's get to it.
Broken, a tragic romance game by Apon Games, is a storytelling game of tragic romance for two players about broken objects and broken hearts. Together, you and your play partner will create two characters in a relationship, and over the course of 10 scenes, you will explore the ways in which the things you loved about each other crack, until everything about your relationship is broken, including 10 real-life physical objects you will break over the game's 10 scenes. In Broken, the relationship will always end. Although the tragic conclusion is inevitable, there is endless potential for healing and self-discovery along the way. Broken is an emotionally deep game that explores themes of memory, identity, and loss. Broken is also full of empathy building, hope, and healing. It recreates the raw, visceral experience of going through a breakup, along with the catharsis of smashing objects, all while telling a beautiful story along the way. Get your copy of the Broken ebook edition now by going to bit.ly/brokengame. That's bit.ly/brokengame, or head to apongames.com, APON games.com today.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I am very excited to be joined by my guest here today, Stephany. Stephany, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing really well. Thank you. Thank you for having me on your show.
Yeah, I'm very excited to talk to you. I know that it's a little bit of a heavier topic, but I think it's important that we talk about it. So before we get started talking about your experience, tell me a little bit about you. Who are you? What do you do? And how did you come to be on this podcast?
So my name is Stephany Ann. I am an attorney, an author, a speaker, and a mother to 3 little boys and 1 border collie named Freya. So we love to travel, we love adventure, we love exploring, and yeah, just being together. We're a huge soccer family. And so, which is funny because I never played soccer, and so I don't know like all the rules, and I don't know everything about soccer, but I'm learning. I was an athlete as well, and so yeah, just having a lot of fun and enjoying our life. And I am an expert on domestic violence and narcissistic abuse, both from a professional and from a personal experience. And so that's why I'm here to spread awareness of narcissistic abuse, domestic violence, what it is, what's the cycle, what does the cycle of abuse look like, how to spot the red flags, how to know if you're in an emotionally or psychologically controlling relationship, and what to do if you are awakened to that, and how do you get out, and how do you heal, and how do you find freedom, and how do you move on from your life. So these are the topics that I love to talk about. And that's why I'm here today, to share some of my expertise and my knowledge, and hope that some of the listeners, if it resonates with them, that they will also find some relief and some freedom as well.
Absolutely. And it's such important work. I mean, I know that people want to stay away from these heavier topics a lot of the time, but that's what we do on the show, is to dive into the topics that people are uncomfortable to talk about. And so first, like before we get started, I want to commend you for your bravery in coming forward. And I'm sure you hear that all the time. But it's a big deal to be ready to put your story out there and share that vulnerably. So I commend you for that.
Thank you.
Well, let's kind of get started with your personal story before we get into some of the advice pieces and things that you've learned that you want to pass off to people. Tell me a little bit about your experience personally with domestic violence, narcissistic abuse.
Yeah, so I always start from the end, and I found myself on the floor in my sister's bathroom, just tears streaming down my cheeks, crying out to God, like, why me? What did I do wrong? Why me? I was a good mother, a good wife. I did everything right, and from the outside, I do look like this very successful person that had everything held together and had a great family. But and just crying out like, what did I do wrong? Where did I go wrong here? Yet, in that moment, I could not see past the pain and suffering that had engulfed my life for so many years. And, I lost a house in a house fire. I lost a house in a hurricane. I had a baby born with an extremely rare genetic disorder. And speaking of babies, if there's any noise or you see like
A little
pantry
head.
doors moving, I'm like, I have a little toddler. But I couldn't see past all this pain and suffering. Like all of this stuff just kept happening to me. And I was just really stuck in this victim mindset, this victim consciousness for a really long time. Like I didn't do anything wrong. But when we're stuck in that mindset, we can't see the for me. And so as I'm sitting here at my sister's house with these tears just streaming down my cheeks, asking God, the universe, like, why me? I realized the only thing I did wrong was fall in love with two unavailable men.
Yep. I've been there.
And so, it was in that moment though that I felt the divine was saying to me, Stephany, you are not seeing your story clearly. You are not seeing your story through the right lens. And in that moment as well, I had lost my eyesight. So I was physically blind as well. And I was blind for about 6 weeks. And so, it was as if I was asleep and blinded to everything that was happening in my life. And I couldn't see it. And that's the thing with narcissistic abuse. It can be so subtle, so slow over a time that you are being slowly, coercively manipulated, and the gaslighting. And when you're in a relationship that doesn't look like traditional domestic violence. So, I was a domestic violence advocate for a long time. In fact, I won the governor's award for my work with victims of domestic violence. But 20 plus years ago, when we would think of domestic violence, we were only focused on physical violence. So what happens when your relationship, it doesn't really fit the mold of traditional domestic violence, but it also doesn't feel right. And, you find yourself in this fog, like, it doesn't feel right. I don't know what's happening. And again, there wasn't all this awareness of what narcissistic abuse is. Even 5 years ago, we were talking about it the way we're talking about it now. And so again, like I didn't know I was in these abusive relationships, even though my background was in domestic violence. And I know if that happened to me, how many other people has it happened to? How many other people are still stuck in these abusive, emotionally and psychologically abusive relationships? Because again, we know something's not right, but we don't always know what it is.
Yeah, you have a feeling, like your gut, something just does not sit right.
It doesn't sit right, but then you have that constant gaslighting, so that now you're doubting your own reality. And so if you look at what is gaslighting, because that's another big word that is thrown around a lot.
Oh yeah.
Gaslighting is when you manipulate another person into doubting their perceptions, experiences, and understanding of events. It is a highly calculated form of coercive control, of manipulation. And you can only gaslight someone that you are in a trusted relationship with. So for instance, I couldn't gaslight you because we're not in this trusted relationship.
Right.
Now, I could if I was wearing the hat as an attorney and now we have this trust relationship, then I could gaslight you because of the position of authority, and
the trust that is inherent
that I'm
in the dynamic.
Yeah. Exactly. And so that's why gaslighting is very common in intimate relationships. And so why do they gaslight? They gaslight because it helps the abuser avoid any responsibility or blame for their actions. Now they can get away with everything. If they can get you to doubt your perception and your understanding of what just happened, they can make you feel like the crazy one, and then they go about their day. And so when you're in it for such a long period of time, my first husband, I was married to him for 14 years, and my second one for almost 5 years. That's it can do a lot of harm.
Oh yeah.
And so, you start to have that self-doubt. Am I the narcissist? Am I the person with a disordered personality? Am I, am I the crazy one? Because they will.
If you're asking those questions,
Yes,
it's probably not you.
exactly. And that's what I tell people. I'm like, it is intentional coercive control is what gaslighting is.
Mm-hmm.
And they intentionally lie and deceive. And so many people say, well, you're with a narcissist, they don't know they're doing any of this stuff. They have this disordered personality. And I'm like, no, I mean, that's a definition of gaslighting, is intentional deception.
Right.
They have to know what they are doing. They know they're gaslighting you. And so, some common gaslighting phrases that maybe you've heard is that you're too sensitive. You're taking everything way too personally and blowing it way out of proportion.
Why are you so dramatic? Yeah.
Why are you so dramatic?
Mm-hmm.
Why are you? I'm just being honest and speaking my truth.
Oh my God, I hate that one.
Right? Then they feel like, well, I'm just speaking my truth, so I can criticize you and manipulate you and belittle you, and that's okay because I'm just speaking my truth.
Yeah.
But I love you.
Yeah. And then you're just like, what mind fuck is that?
That's exactly what it is. It is the biggest mind fuck. It's like, what? And they play on that. And again, because it helps them avoid any responsibility. If they can shift everything onto you and make you start questioning your sanity, questioning your understanding of what happened, then they can keep controlling you because they are controlling your reactions. And you start to live from a place of reaction and not responding. And that is part of the conditioning that goes on in these type of relationships. And so that's gaslighting for people who don't know what gaslighting is. But how do you even know what a narcissist is? So I don't know about you, but for me, when I was in middle school, we all had to study Latin and Greek.
I did not, luckily.
Greek mythology and Greek mythology and stuff. So Narcissus was a man that fell in love with his reflection, and he never left the pool. He died there because he was so enamored with his reflection. And so when you think of a narcissist must meet several characteristics, several traits to be considered a narcissist. And so, there's the grandiose sense of self-importance. They have this preoccupation with unlimited fantasies of wealth and power. And they believe that they are the most special, important person, and everyone wants to be them. All the women want to date them. All the, men want to date them. Everyone's jealous of who they are. They're charming. They're charismatic. They manipulate and gaslight to get whatever they want, and they will exploit you to get whatever they want. They lack empathy.
They can't.
It's very scary. And the thing is that it's very, very challenging to know that you are with a narcissist and that you are experiencing narcissistic abuse. Because in the beginning, everything is great. They manipulate everybody. And for me, both my ex-husbands were like that.
Yeah.
I had them do the brother-in-law test. One of my brother-in-laws, he's a former Marine. He's a OSP sergeant. And I'm like, okay, if anyone could pick up on this and tell me if this is a good guy or not, it's him. Well, he was charmed also. It can happen to anyone. And
Flying
so
colors,
it is. Yeah, so it is challenging to know that you're in these relationships. But, and so that's also the scary part as well. Because how do you know until you've been in it long enough and until you start seeing like the the subtle sights
Mhm.
of it.
And then you have that moment like you talked about on the bathroom floor where you're just like, "Oh, okay." It's funny. I was just literally right before I hopped onto this call with you, I finished an audiobook. I'm talking within 5 minutes. I finished this
Yeah.
audiobook. It was called The Wife Between Us, and it is about
Mm.
it's a great example of how slowly it can happen and seep in, and so you don't even really
Yeah.
realize that it's happening, and how it can escalate to that point where you're just like, how did I get here?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I share my story. And that's why I talk about this, because it's my background in domestic violence. And here I was married to two abusive people. And it took me a long time to realize that. And so, yeah, that's why we need to share our stories and talk about it
Absolutely.
to get it out there. And so, speaking of that, like, how do you know, like, what's the beginning of the relationship look like versus the end of the relationship? And so, when you look at the cycle of narcissistic abuse, it follows a cycle and it follows a pattern. And once you start understanding the cycle and the patterns, that's where freedom is. Understanding, when you understand something and you have the knowledge about what it is, then you can find the freedom. And so the cycle of narcissistic abuse, it starts with the idolization phase, then the devaluation, and then the discard. So in the idolization phase, this is where everything is perfect. This is where everything is wonderful. This is where you truly, truly believe you have found your soulmate. And it was for me also, and for the hundreds and hundreds of people that I talk to as well. It starts out wonderful.
Fairy tale.
Here this person is. It's the fairy tale. It is. For I always talk about my second ex-husband just because he's, chronologically he is the last one. But when I met him, I manifested him. I wrote out the list. I was very clear because after, spending 14 years with a cheater and a covert narcissist and all this other stuff, I was very specific on what I wanted and what I didn't want. And so I wrote out this list. Of course, it's like tall, dark, handsome, divorced dad with only little boys, because I was a divorced mom with only little boys.
Mhm.
And, so I was very specific, someone who's been outside of the US, who's traveled a little bit, because, we're a well-traveled family. And so I put it out there, and a week later, I meet a man who checks off every single thing on the list.
So you're like, this was meant to be. This is my gift.
Yes. And
Yeah.
that and so, when he starts saying things like, "You're my soulmate. Where were you 20 years ago? We should have been together 20 years ago, and then we would have, already had 20 years on us." And like, he's saying everything right.
Mhm.
And for me, it's like, wow, I just manifested you. The universe is giving me everything I want, because I'm always getting everything I want. And now I found this beautiful person. And in the beginning, he was incredible. He was showing up all the time for things. And we lived 3.5 hours away from each other. And so for the first couple months, we actually didn't even meet. I thought I was playing it safe. I thought I was doing everything right.
Right.
And so we only just talked, and then we FaceTimed and stuff like that. And we really got to know each other. And here's the scary truth is that, how do you get to know someone when they are mirroring you? When they are mirroring your values, when they're mirroring your hobbies, when they're mirroring and projecting onto you everything you wanted in a partner, they are. So you either say, this is true love and we're soulmates and we're destined and this is the fairy tale and I found the one. And especially for those of us who've been in other like abusive relationships or in other relationships, to find someone that is so intensely focused on you and basically puts you on this pedestal and worships the ground you walk on. doesn't want that?
Yeah.
Who doesn't want that?
Yeah,
But
my thought to that is the person who doesn't want that is somebody who's been in an abusive dynamic before, which, yours truly here.
well,
I get really
but yeah,
suspicious of that now.
yeah. Well, now, and so
Mhm.
I tell people, and even tell myself, there's this legal term called caveat emptor,
Mm.
buyer beware. If it's too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. It's like when you go on to some of that fast fashion
Mhm.
apps and
Mhm.
order some things, and you think you've ordered this you think you've ordered this really cool thing that's going to fit you and stuff, and you get it back, and it's like, oh,
Yeah, expectation
it's
reality.
tiny.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's like that in the beginning. If it is too good to be true, if it is moving very quickly and very intensely, be on the lookout. I wasn't, because I chose to kind of turn a blind eye to certain red flags, because I wanted to trust and I wanted to believe. Because again, after spending 14 years with someone who cheated the whole time, I didn't want to be that hyper vigilant person who was always checking
Yeah.
phones, who wasn't trusting and wasn't believing. And so I chose to believe everything he said, which also is not good as well.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, you have this, they really create this fairy tale. You're going out all the time. You're doing fun things together. They're mirroring you. And I think that's really the big important one to realize, is that they become the person you want them to become. And then when they have you hooked, so committed to them, it could be a month, it could be several months, it could be a year, however long that takes for them to really hook you into the relationship. Then they take the mask off, and this is where the devaluation comes in. Now, all of a sudden, they are criticizing you. Now, the things they loved about you in the beginning, they're belittling, they're making fun of. They're using all your insecurities against you. They essentially become a completely different person overnight. And this is why sometimes you'll hear people say, well, they had this Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde personality.
Mm-hmm.
I said it. I have that written all over in my journals. Like, what the F just happened? Why was he yesterday so wonderful and incredible, and the guy I fell in love with, and now today he's like treating me like crap?
And it makes you question, what did I do?
Exactly, and that's the gaslighting. We
Mhm.
start questioning, well, what did I do? Like, why is he like this now? What do I have to do? Who do I have to become to get the man I fell in love with back? And so here's the sick irony, I guess, is that in the beginning they become who we want them to become. Later on, as the relationship progresses, we try to become
Oh,
everything
man.
we think that they want us to be. So we start hiding our true authentic self, and or if you don't hide it, you lose that part of
Yeah.
you, because you're constantly trying to change and be whatever person you think is what they want. But the truth is that person in the beginning was never there. It was an
Right.
illusion. It was fake. And that's really hard for victims and survivors to grasp. That was an illusion. That person didn't exist. And so what happens when you have this constant intermittent reinforcement? So you have it's good, and then the devaluation, and then it's good,
Mm-hmm.
and there could be devaluation. And so this intermittent period can go on for days or weeks, or sometimes even months, depending on the dynamics of your relationship. And so for me, what I started noticing was that every first, it was like one weekend a month he would just kind of have this mini rage and become this completely different person. And he would uh, ignore, or just distance himself And so when they're doing that, the whole time you're wondering, what did I do? Can I go? And you start apologizing for things that you don't even know what you're apologizing for, because you're trying to get back that nice person.
Right.
And so again, the narcissist wants to control your response. And so you no longer start responding, you just start reacting. So when they go and give you the silent treatment for a week, what's that doing to you internally? You're reacting all over the place. And your thought patterns are like, well, what's going on? What did I do? And all this stuff, because they know. This is why it's such a psychological mind F, is because they know that you are in agony, and they know that you are going to be obsessing, have all these obsessive thoughts over them. So, even though they're physically not near you, they are controlling you, because all of that is control. They're controlling your emotions. And now I'm having a horrible week just because, of what he's doing, because I'm reacting.
Right.
And so it's really disgusting when you really start to understand what has happened. And so all of this intermittent reinforcement, though, like I was saying, the good, the bad, it's good, it's bad. This is why when you hear people say, well, I have to walk on eggshells, because you don't know. When you wake up in the morning, which personality is going to present itself? Because remember, a narcissist is a disordered personality.
Right.
And so it's like, do I have to prepare to protect myself? Is he going to do this? Do I have to have some defenses lined up? Or, but all of this intermittent reinforcement creates a trauma bond. And so a trauma bond is very similar to Stockholm syndrome. And most people have heard of Stockholm syndrome. It's where, when you have these sensational cases, and this, we'll just say this young girl has been kidnapped.
Sure.
And now she falls in love with the kidnapper. They have a trauma bond. And so a trauma bond in a narcissistic abusive relationship is a very powerful bond. And you have all these energies that have really bonded you to this person. And so I like to explain it as an addiction, as a drug addiction. So the first time the person is using, say they're using something, they get this really big high, and their body's releasing all these chemicals. You have the dopamine, you have the oxytocin, and the love chemicals. So your body is releasing all of this, and you get this really big high. Then you come down, which is like the devaluation period, and you will do anything to get that high again. And so, but every time you continue to use, you get less of the rush. You don't ever get to that first high. And so you constantly use, thinking, okay, well, this time, maybe this time I will get that first high.
Yep.
And so similarly, in a trauma bonded relationship, we think, what do we need to do to get the person I fall in love with? How do I get that person back? And so we stay, because even just a little bit of the good, the attention, the affirmation, the positive, the love bombing, whatever, it's worth it, because it feels so nice to have that back after a period of devaluation. And so all of this is it just creates this big fog known as cognitive dissonance. And cognitive dissonance is when you hold two conflicting beliefs about a person or a situation. So what happens when you hold this belief about your partner? You love this partner, but you hate this partner.
Yeah.
You want to be with this partner,
Yeah.
but you don't want to be with this partner. You want this partner to change, but they're not changing, you're changing.
Right.
And when you have two competing beliefs, which belief wins? It's the dominant belief wins. And usually the dominant belief, because many of us who are in these relationships, we're super caring, we're super empathetic, We want to make it work. We will do anything to save our marriage and save our relationship. What do we need to do? And so usually our dominant belief is, well, we love this person. So now we're going to look for evidence of that we love them. And so even though we're just getting little bits dropped in every now and then, it's enough to stay. Because again, in these relationships, sometimes it's so subtle.
Right. Yeah.
But over time, and what you will see over time, especially people who've been in longer relationships, even longer than I have, but I'll talk to men and women who've been in relationships for 20, 30, 40 years. And the devaluation becomes the norm, and they rarely have moments of the idolization period, of the good times.
It becomes less and less and less over time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so until you become empty, because you've been giving and giving and giving, and in these relationships, they're so focused on the other party because they want all that affirmation, they want all that adoration and attention, and they take and take and take, and we just keep giving and giving and giving, but we get nothing back.
Right.
Like both my marriages, we're both, why am I always the one giving, always the one doing this, always the one taking care of everyone, no one's taking care of me? And so they're draining, they're exhausting, they're burdensome. But when you have that trauma bond, when you're in that cognitive dissonance, just living in all that fog, you slowly start to blind yourself or to fall asleep to everything that's going on, and you just kind of start to accept your reality. Like,
right.
This is my reality. How do I get out of this? Now we have kids together. We have a house together. We have lives together. And he's told me for 10 years that no one would believe me anyways.
Yeah.
So no one's going to believe me. If I speak up now, I should have spoke up 8 years ago, but I didn't say anything. And now it's like 10 years too late, and I'm stuck.
Well, how do you get out? Like, what are some steps that somebody, if they've realized that they're in this dynamic and they want out, how do they get out? How do they heal?
Yeah. So, the final phase of the narcissistic abuse cycle is the discard. And it's exactly what it sounds like. I mean, what do we discard? Something
Trash.
we've used up,
Mhm.
something that no longer is important to us, that no longer it plays an important part in our life. We toss it. We're done with it. And so that's what happens in these relationships. Either the narcissist has used you up, you're an empty shell of a person that you were, you're no longer fun, you're not playing the game because you've turned into the robot that they've programmed.
Mm-hmm.
And they want a shiny new toy, so they discard you, which is usually them walking away and seeking other sources of supply.
Right.
Or you find the worthiness and the courage to leave. Because it takes a lot of courage to leave these relationships. They're hard to leave. The trauma bond is very strong. But you can leave, and there is freedom on the other side. And once you understand that, and so what happens is there's a statistic out there that says most people attempt to leave 6 to 8 times before they successfully leave an abusive relationship. So a lot of that has to do with the terror barrier, is what I call it. So say, you're in this relationship, you've had all this XX conditioning, right? And so now you start entertaining this idea of, maybe I should leave. I'm not being treated really well. I deserve something better. I'm worthy of something better. And so you try to leave, but then all of a sudden now you have all these feelings of doubt and worry enter into your mind. And doubt and worry, if you get emotionally involved with doubt and worry, it creates fear. And fear is expressed to the body as anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you become super anxious, and all the thoughts, that all the gaslighting thoughts, no one is going to believe you. You will never find anyone better than me. You're not going to make it without me. I have all the money. You're worthless. You have no job. No one's going to love you the way I love you. No one's going to treat you the way I treat you. And so we start entertaining all these thoughts. And this is why it takes so many times to leave,
Right.
because in order to really leave, you have to change that paradigm. And that paradigm, when you've been with a narcissist for so long, the paradigm is all those things I've just said. You've been conditioned. So now you have to become emotionally involved with, I am worthy of so much better. I deserve so much better. I will get through to the other side. There are resources out there. There are people out there. There is support out there. And once you start to become more emotionally involved with those type of ideas, then you just stop entertaining the doubt and the worry. And if you're not entertaining doubt and worry, then there is no fear. And if there's no fear, then there's no anxiety.
Right.
So you let that go, and you can really find true freedom. And so it's the understanding of what the conditioning is. It's the understanding of the cycle of abuse that you went through. It's the understanding of the manipulation and the coercive control and the gaslighting that you went through that will help you to leave once and for all.
That's such an important point, that it's understanding the cycle, that knowledge is power, they say, right? So understanding that cycle is what really is going to give you that awareness that it's not your fault and that you have been engulfed in this cycle over and over and over again.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, when you understand why your body is reacting with anxiety, why when every time you try to leave, you freeze, well, it's because you're still entertaining doubt and worry.
Right.
And so you have to release that and let that go. So there's the power and knowledge that comes through understanding. And once you get to the other side, then you can really focus on yourself. And so, there are people who are still in the relationships and are still trying to get to that point where they're not entertaining and getting emotionally involved with all the gaslighting phrases and stuff, but they are starting to trust themselves and to believe that they are worthy of something better. And once you leave, then you can truly, really start to work on yourself. It's really about getting rid of all that negative talk that has been programmed in your mind.
Right.
It's getting rid of it. So I like to do like a negativity dump. Just get the narcissist out of your head, because it's just all their words that they've conditioned and programmed you to. So you have to get it all out. And that's one of the steps in healing, is really getting out all of that negative self-talk, all the narcissist words and the belittling and the criticism and the gaslighting. You have to get all of that out. And then you have to fill it with the polar opposite. So all the good stuff. You are worthy. You are strong. You are powerful. You are courageous. You can do hard things. You can get through this. Trust and believe yourself. Letting go of those old false beliefs that you've been conditioned to. And then you can truly work on yourself and find that peace and that freedom, that ease in your body.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a process that takes a long time, right? Like, it's not something that happens overnight.
Yeah, well, it will take as long as you believe it will take. So if you believe it will take years, then it will take years, but it doesn't have to. I was reading this book a while ago, and it's called The Biology of Belief by Dr. Bruce Lipton. I don't know if you're familiar with the book.
I know Bruce Lipton. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so one of the things that I loved that he said in his book, because he's a cellular biologist, and he's saying, every 11 to 12 months, our body completely regenerates itself. So that means every year we have a completely new physical body. So the physical body that I have here that I'm standing before you, neither of my ex-husbands has even looked upon. They've never seen this. They've never touched me. They've never gaslit this body of mine. They've never manipulated this new physical body of mine. And so if our body renews itself every year, why do we put our old trauma back into our brand new body?
Some would say that it's impossible not to, I suppose.
But it's not. It's just, it's based on your belief. So if you believe it's not possible, if you believe you can't heal, you can't renew your mind, if it's going to take years, like I said, then it will. It will for you. It didn't for me.
Yeah, and where are you now? What are you up to now? Like, what does life look like?
So I actually I've taken the year off. Ooh, and okay. I'm not working one-on-one with anyone right now. Actually, my first ex-husband, he committed suicide almost a year ago, last fall. And so when, we have these little kids together. And so really decided, I took the year off, and I'm writing a series of books on a narcissist and abuse and trauma and things I went through. And so I'm working on that right now. And yeah, I'm creating a course, healing yourself in a year, so that when your new physical body is here, your mind is also renewed. And so you're not putting your old trauma back into your brand new physical body.
I love that idea. I've read that statistic that skin cells like rejuvenate every 7 years or something like that. So that's, I guess, falls in line with that. But yeah, it's
I think it's fascinating. I think it is. I'm like, wow. So these are things that I think about. Like we shouldn't be putting our old trauma and wounds. And when you think of what trauma is our reaction to the things that have happened to us, our reaction and attachment to those things. So it's not, our trauma is based on us. It's not based on them. So if we're in control of our trauma, then we can let it go.
Yeah.
Put something else there.
Yeah, I like that idea. I'm in the middle of a little bit of a purge of that sort myself. So I'll have to check that book out. I do know Bruce Lipton. And I've checked out a lot of his work before, so I'll have to add that to my Amazon cart.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at. Just creating this new life for me and my kids, and speaking and sharing my story. And I share my story because even if one person could benefit from it, and it's worth it for me to share, because I went through a lot, and I don't want everyone to go through everything that I went through.
Right. So you were doing lawyering. You're taking a year off from that, I assume, is what you mean by taking a year off?
A year off from everything, and just being home, being mom and dad and caregiver and everything else that two parents do, wrapped up in one.
Yeah. And working on, it sounds like your boys have been through a lot too, especially like losing somebody, but it's work, just not only being two parents to these guys, but also taking care of them emotionally and to make sure that they're coping okay with all of this stuff. So it's a lot.
It is a lot, but honestly, they are doing very, very well.
Good.
As well. Yeah.
And Stephany Ann, where can people find you? Like, are there any things that you want to promote, like a website, or we're talking about your books? Where can people find you?
Yeah, so My website, I'm still working on my website right now, so it's not finished. And I am creating a course based on what we just talked about, how to heal your mind in a year, so that your physical body, when it is
Right.
renewed, that your mind is also renewed as well. So I'm coming up with a membership and creating a course around that
cool.
right now. Yeah. So when all this stuff is ready, I will definitely reach back out and
Absolutely.
give you the links and stuff. But it's not out. And my books, I'm hoping my first one will be ready end of October, since October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. I'm really working hard to launch it during that month as well.
Absolutely. Well, that's incredible. And again, thank you for sharing your story. Like all the resources that you provided, I'm just like, oh yeah, that is all such helpful information to keep an eye on that cycle of abuse, to know what the red flags are and how to understand the cycle to be able to extricate yourself from it. It's all really helpful information. I hope that if any of my listeners do need to hear this, that they will, and they'll be able to get themselves out of whatever bad situation they're in. So thank you for coming on here and sharing your story today.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for having me. It really is an honor to be on your show today.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for listening. You have been listening to Wine, Dine, and 69. I am your host, Rachel Dalton, and let's keep talking.